Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Rage video. Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are now, after this, we'll be now halfway into Rush's Signals albums. And one thing that's, again, going through this again, I'm astounded by a number of things. And one of the bigger things I'm kind of astounded in is that this sort of almost goes into larger detail about Neil Peart's sort of very interested and very almost I don't really think that it's a pessimistic view about the outside world, about society, about the things that just go on in society, even going on just in basic daily human interactions like we discussed in Chemistry. Oh, and speaking of Chemistry, one or two things I just kind of needed to mention is that Chemistry was the last song in which Neil Peart, Alex Lifeson, and Geddy Lee were all credited with writing that song, or at least parts of it. I'm not entirely sure if everybody had a lot to say in it, but that is the very last time that would happen. And considering there's at least 10 more studio albums after this, not counting their 2004, I'm going to call it their hippie garage incorporated, because it's basically an entire album full of cover songs, mostly inspired by stuff from the 1960s. But speaking of things from the past, is that Digital Man is almost the sort of follow-up from the Analog Kid. And the Analog Kid talks a lot about freedom, expression, nostalgia, feelings of happiness, feelings of joy, feelings of that you don't have to worry. And it's not just about, things about youth or looking back, is that you can rest assured that there's not many things to worry about. And when you get to the adult age, it's not that you're expected to be very conscientious or to take things in that are very important now going on in the world right now. But I think it's more important to, again, not let it, not live in doom and gloom, I think is the best way to say it. And I think that might become prominent when this is all said and done. So, if you guys want to check out the original video for yourselves, links will all be in the description down below. So let's begin. The Digital Man in 3, 2, 1, and... Can we just start that? I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Whenever Neil Peart does anything that stands out, it will always stand out. Neil is the most charismatic drummer of all time. He is, if not the greatest. And I'll be very hard-pressed to find, because there are a lot of people who are very, very talented on the drums, but Neil is a little bit more than that, if you know what I mean. So, let's do this again.
Love to spend the night in Zion. It's been a long, long while in Babylon. Like a lover's wings to fly on to a ambulance and death. Its reliance on the giants in the science of the day. Picks up scraps of information. He's adapted adaptation. Says for strangers and arranges constant changes. He do stay. Love to spend the night in Zion. It's been a long, long while in Babylon. It's like a lover's wings to fly on to a tropic island, Babylon.
In Babylon, in a long, long place to fly on
To a tropic island,
Babylon.
He's got a force field and a flexible plan. He's got a date with fate in a black sedan. Plays fast forward just as long as he can, but he won't be the bear, he's a digital man. He plays fast forward just as long as he can, but he won't be the bear, he's a digital man. He plays fast forward just as long as he can, but he won't be the bear, he's a digital man. He plays fast forward, but he won't be the bear, plays fast forward just as long as he can.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was Digital Man by Rush, and surprisingly enough, there was quite a few things differently that I kind of wanted to get off my chest, because it seems like, again, looking back on it now, the immediate impression I'm getting out of Digital Man is that this is the story of a man who just does things without feeling any particular emotion. He is I imagine digital, because Rush had this song called Working Man back on their self-titled album called, I often like to call it, I think it's called Finding My Fate or something like that, because I think the idea of like self-titled albums is just dumb, to be honest. So I usually just call it after the first song on the album. But Working Man literally feels just like the story of just an average working man who just sort of wants to enjoy his time whenever he's not at work. He's not really a man. He is. Again, you may have heard me say this before, but I have honestly get the impression sometimes that certain members of those unemployed probably just look on people who work as, not so much as just somebody who just needs to do it, like go to work, but people who just see it as nothing but a cool lifestyle choice, you know what I mean? And in Digital Man, quite the opposite is at the contrary, is that this is the story of a man who is so devoid of emotion. He's not really a human, he's digital, he's someone artificial, he's something that's made by man, electronic, and someone who is to do and ordered, programmed that particular way, especially in lines like his world is unanesthetic, subdivided and synthetic, his reliance on the giants in the science of the day. He picks up scraps of information, he's adept at adaptation. Because for strangers and arrangers, constant change is here to stay. He has to adapt in such a way that it's almost devoid of like pleasure, context, rationality, or any given emotion whatsoever. He just has to do it because that's what he's been ordered to do. And that's the thing I get out of this, is that but at the same time, even though he has a very robotic mindset, he still has dreams. He still is able to express emotions, feelings of love and desire. He'd love to spend a night in Zion. He's been a long while in Babylon. He's like a lover's wings try to fly on to a tropic isle of Avalon. And I think the interesting case about all of this is that he thinks in such a way that this is what he wants. He is able to actually not just think for himself, but think of what he wants for himself. Which I'd say is, again, to be honest, if I had my way, it would be one of the first things I'd straight up be asking every single person alive today is, what do they want? Because it's not only proposing a question, but maybe it could be for the first time for a very long time somebody's actually asked them for their opinion. Like I said before, there are some people who work and some people who are unemployed who have sometimes kids who don't listen to them, have adults who don't listen to them, and so perhaps maybe for a week, a day, maybe a couple of hours, they have somebody who is actually listening to their problems, somebody who actually wants to ask them something that is actually relevant to their life. There are many people who have jobs nowadays, ladies and gentlemen, where their opinions are not necessary, not only because maybe they're not required, or maybe also because there's nothing to be gained from any of them. And that's bloody tragic in my view, in the state of the human race, because everybody is entitled to their opinion, ladies and gentlemen. Don't anybody ever say that you're not. And everybody has something they should say, and there are some people who, well, I can't necessarily say, or because of uncertainties and stuff like that, but everybody has something they want to say, and maybe some people are just slightly scared to say it, or some people who just worried of looking foolish would rather say nothing because of fears of like ridicule and stuff like that, when that sort of attitude is really not how we should be going about it. We should be openly encouraging people just to say what's on their mind, whether they receive ridicule or not, or the rest of it. Because earlier today, ladies and gentlemen, when I was on my way home from, it wasn't even a half day of work, but I saw like a guy, he was about like 64 years old, white with like a grey hoodie and a black t-shirt with White Lives Matter on it. Now, you could say all you want about whether or not he thought he was wearing this as a joke, or whether it was meant to be like a fashion statement, or meant to send like a political subcharged message. And bear in mind, when I was passing through town today, there was Iranian protesters all gathered around Gray's monument. But the only thing that sort of like also occurred in my mind is that maybe this man just wore it because he had something he wanted to say. You'll notice too, I was almost immediately quick to dismiss it out of hand by saying that this is somebody who just doesn't really understand about why things like Black Lives Matter, that movement even came into prominence in the first place. This guy is just wearing something that says Why Lives Matter because we don't know if it's just trying to counterbalance it or whether or not it was meant to be for anything else. But the important thing is that I think it takes a lot to even say that as well, whatever his intentions were. But then, of course, comes the very tricky question to ask us: what exactly is he trying to prove? Because I've never seen anybody wear a shirt like that before when I'm about in town and stuff like that. Doesn't mean to say it doesn't happen every day. It's just I just may not happen to be there to see it myself. But that's again the next thing I just wanted. Again, I was trying to put out there is that maybe it was something he was trying to get off his chest or something like that. Because even as we see towards the end for the Digital Man, he's got a date with fate in a black sedan. Whether or not he's going to try and kill himself in his car or drive off would easily suggest that he actually he's been designed in such a way, but to lead a life that he probably doesn't agree with or understands why he's doing things without question. So the only thing to do left is to literally go, more or less, and plays fast forward just as long as he can. I think the idea behind the line like that is that he, whether or not it indicates him going to die in a high-speed crash, or whether or not he's going through a song or something just to get some enjoyment out of maybe some song that sounds really good when played fast forward, or what's that. And I love even the fact that it goes into the end, but he won't need a bed. Cremation, perhaps, or he's literally just going to be melted down and converted into something else. Which, again, that's the next part about the strange way of like human interaction, and whenever a person is dead and buried, is that do they really have time to rest? Are they not like used for some other purpose? For example, there are many people alive today who take a lot of joy out of like putting dead people or people throughout history on pedestals so that they could draw on an inspiration, and for good or bad, it was part of their reference. And that's the sort of thing I don't really know if there's like genuine people who really would do stuff like that, but I think it's quite interesting because, well, we hold quite a lot of people in very high esteem who may have died before their time, or because the legacy of their work has stood the test of times and stuff like that. But it's really I think that's a man's like his words and his memories live on through us, and they create a new wave of culture before our very eyes. I think, well, personally speaking, I think it's a lot more interesting about how almost mechanized we are to even the human soul, and how we mechanize it after death. So really, there is no peace because we don't have peace in this world. If we don't have peace in this world between each other, then how are we going to have it peace even after we've left this earth? So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this reaction video to The Digital Man. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys thought of the digital man for yourselves, and I cannot wait to talk with you guys again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.